course. I'm really happy that you decided you could join us here today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm trapped in my house. I don't have a lot of other options right now, frankly. So no, it's great. I'm happy to be here. And I know that just chatting with you beforehand, you want to help authors sell more books. And I think that that's something I'm obviously passionate about. So it's a good match. And I'm looking forward to the webinar.
Awesome. So I want to make an introduction. I'm Becky Norwood with Spotlight Publishing, and I work with many, many authors in getting their books published and out to the world, their wisdom, their stories. But Dave takes it even further, and it's something that when I work with authors, the first question I ask is, why are you doing this? The big why. And the second is the conversation around, from the moment you start writing that book is the time you start marketing. It's the time that you start engaging people and sharing out what you're doing and get people involved in it, because it's part of the success of actually making a book, making all the effort that it takes to write a book worth it. And we do have important messages, and the time we're living in right now is incredibly important that we get our wisdom out to the world, because there's many people that have not a clue what's going to happen, what to do. They're not used to being at home all the time, not used to being with family, and they have time on their hands and fearful, really. Many are fearful about the future. So I want to introduce you to Dave Chilton. He is pretty amazing. I want to read the bio that he sent to me. He says, you may know Dave Chilton is the nice venture capitalist on the hit TV show Dragon's Den, which is Canada's forerunner to the Shark Tank. What you may not know is that he built his fortune in the most unusual of ways through self-publishing. Dave authored The Wealthy Barber and The Wealthy Barber Returns, and has sold over 5 million copies in his tiny two-person office. Over the years, Dave has been besieged by requests for advice from authors and self-publishers. Even the biggest publishing companies in the world have flown Dave in to share his unique book marketing approaches. Complimented but overwhelmed by all the cries for help, Dave decided to create this one-of-a-kind comprehensive course. This course will show you not only what to do, but also, as importantly, exactly how to do it. And that's what I've been enjoying about Dave's course myself, because I have been looking for ways to really serve my authors. But, you know, one of my own authors, David Medansky, introduced me to Dave's course, and I've been thrilled at the way he teaches and how he teaches this course. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Dave.
Well, thank you. And I mean, two things about the course that are unusual. One is I'm making no money from the course. I initially said I was going to donate it to a firm out in California. They were going to produce it and charge $1,490 US. And I was donating all the material, and I said, that's too much. We're not going to get at enough authors. My son ended up getting involved and taking over the distribution, but I'm not making any money, nor do I want to. I got involved in doing this because I was besieged, as I said earlier in the intro, with requests from authors, because most people don't understand, how do you market a book? How do you create demand? How do you rise above all the noise? It's not easy, by the way, but there are certainly many steps. I would say that when you first start watching the videos, they seem almost obsessive compulsive in terms of the attention to detail, but it matters. The good news is you don't have to do everything I teach. There's 17 hours worth of videos there. You have to pick the 2 or 3 hotspots. Maybe you want to market to podcasts. Maybe you want to focus on corporate sales and partnerships. You pick the 2 or 3 areas and you do those well. Execution is still the key. You made a great point prior to introducing me about how important it is to understand a lot of this as you put your book together. It's so key. Right now, for example, there's a ton of research that says people want shorter books. The opposite of when I started 30 years ago. The thicker books tended to sell well because people subconsciously thought there's more meat, there's more content, there's a better bang for the buck. Now with people being busy and having ADD almost across the board, they want thinner books and they want shorter chapters. They want punchier information. All of these things matter. Earlier, you talked about the why behind the book. One of the things I talk about at length in the early part of the course is nothing makes for a better introduction than a short intro, a page and a half, that tells the reader, tells the media, tells anybody out there, why am I writing this book? What difference am I trying to make? Why me? It takes all that in, it does it in a compelling way, a story-like way, and that's what draws the author in, or pardon me, draws the reader in. So all of these things are vital. Any one thing on its own as you put the book together may not put you over the top, but collectively, if you do all these things well, they can make a giant difference.
I so agree, because one of the things that has been lost really in our society is the art of storytelling and really connecting with story. And if you can put that together in a way that will engage readers, they'll keep on reading. And
Absolutely.
it is true. The shorter, short books are much better because people are way too busy these days.
Well,
And
let's be honest, a lot of nonfiction books, there's a fair amount of fluff in there.
too much.
Too much fluff. And too many times you see 4 examples, except the examples are almost identical. They don't even come at the subject matter from a different perspective. And I think readers are becoming more impatient. They're becoming more demanding. That's a good, healthy thing. And they want it in a shorter spot. And they want to be entertained while they're informed. It's very difficult now if you're not a good storyteller, or if you don't know how to use humor, you're up against it. You're competing with everything from Netflix, because it takes eyeballs, to all the online information, to all the other books out there. You have to, again, be able to connect with the reader. That's the right word. You have to be able to pull them in and connect with them. Well, it's humor, it's emotion, it's storytelling, all of those things, brevity to some extent in this new environment. All of those things are key, and bringing them together is what makes for a successful book nowadays. Are there exceptions? Sure. You look at Tim Ferriss, and his books are big and thick, although shorter chapters. He rises above the noise anyway. He's got the great podcast following. He's able to do some marketing others aren't. But most successful nonfiction books now are thinner than they used to be, and certainly punchier.
They need to be, because I know for myself, I'm busy working a lot with my authors. What time I have, if I'm going to read a book, I want it something that I can get done in a short amount of time. I want to be able to mark those key points that I find really interesting, have them as references, but I don't have the time to read long books, even fiction, just relaxation kind of books. I just don't have the time. The shorter is better.
Completely agree. So just to give the viewers right now an indication of all the points of difference, one of the first things I talk about in the course is the mistakes you see by conventional publishing houses, by self-published authors, etc. One of the examples I throw out is that they put the acknowledgments at the front of their book. I've said for 30 years that is a very dumb move. Fortunately, major publishers have started to shift them to the back. I'm going to be perfectly blunt. The readers couldn't care less about your Aunt Alice helping you to craft this book. Unless you have a very unique set of acknowledgments, get them out of there. The worst thing you want to do is start your book with a boring section on acknowledgments. That's for the back of the book. Get right to the meat. The dedication page, on the other hand, is actually quite important because people look at it. How can you not look at it? You're flipping by. There's only 1 or 2 lines in the middle of a page. Your eye automatically goes to them. Yet authors don't exploit that opportunity to, again, connect with the reader. You've got to put something there that surprises the reader. You can't put, "To my lovely wife, Ellen, who was a great help." Frankly, it's boring, no matter how big a help Ellen was. You've got to do something, again, that pulls people in. That is so key in the dedication. So all those are the little things we talk about at length in the course, putting the book together. How do you test your material? How do you design the cover and the subtitle in a way that makes sense? What should go on the back cover? The back covers are so important in book marketing. These are things most authors are not getting a good feel for. And then, of course, the bulk of the course is about, now the book is in hand, how do I market it? How do I get out there and create the attention? Do I try to build a web following? My advice is probably not. It's too difficult to get people to follow if you're starting from scratch. If you already have a platform with a big following, that's great. Then obviously you want to market your books to those people. But starting from scratch to build a huge following, that's very difficult. Often a better way to spend time is go to the people in your arena. Go to the people dealing with your target demographic and somehow get them to mention the book. Somehow get them to get out there and tell people about this. Again, not easy, but we detail really in fine ways exactly how to go about getting kits into their hands and get them excited.
Well, I think that one of the things that's been successful in my working with authors is I teach them how to build a launch team, also how to get really solid endorsements, and and then also realizing that the reviews are often very, very important. That
No question.
So let's talk about your method of getting new books into corporations, how that's done, and how that works for an author. What's the steps they need to take?
Well, that's what we're going to focus on today, because I think that part of the course has gone over so well. I know this sounds a bit dramatic, but it's almost shocked us. Like, I was very confident that part of the course was going to be well received, but I'll have to admit, even I've been surprised by how many course users have been able to strike very significant bulk sales deals. So why am I attracted to that marketplace? Well, first off, all the deals are unreturnable. They're non-returnable. And so you don't have any risk. You get paid up front, at least 50%, but often 100%. There's literally no risk. Even for those of your authors out there who are doing ebooks only, you can go to an offset printer and print the books if you get an order for 5,000 and 10,000. Let's not be ridiculous here. You would never turn that down when you're prepaid, et cetera. So they're very lucrative. But the thing I like about them is I've never seen a better ROI, return on investment, than putting efforts into this space. We're talking about making 10 and 20 phone calls. We're talking about putting 10, 15, 20 kits together, and often results in a very big deal. Worst case scenario, you've wasted 5 hours putting kits and putting phone calls out there. That's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. But in so many instances, good things come of it. And the nice thing now is there's so many different ways to attack this marketplace. You can do e-excerpt deals. So for example, you look at all the companies out there trying to connect with people. And how are they doing that online? They're trying to get their contact information. So if I have a book on marketing through direct mail, well, I can easily go to one of the companies that's trying to promote that. You can even go to the US Post, for example, and you can try to get them to give away a chapter from the book with their online advertising. And they pay you a few $1,000s, but they induce people to give them their contact information. Books are fantastic for that. That particular idea is working wonderfully well. Is it going to make you rich? No. But here's what it does for you. It gives you a few $1,000s to $10,000 every time. The second thing it does is it gets that excerpt into people's hands. And guess what? They're much more likely to buy the rest of the book. In fact, normally the excerpt has a link right at the bottom that takes you to Amazon or to an ordering page, and you can buy either the full ebook or the full physical book. So it creates tremendous word of mouth. It's also great for authors' personal brands if you see credible major institutions doing an advertising campaign that involves their book. Well, to be honest, these aren't that difficult to set up. I remember my son Scott was helping an author with a book, and he phoned into it and 2 other major firms and got return calls from their marketing people right away saying, this is a fantastic idea. We hadn't thought of that. He was 3 for 3 with major companies. So that's just one idea of the dozens that are out there. Bulk sales, corporate sales, ebooks, marketing initiatives. Books are a fantastic tool. Why? They have a high perceived value, but a low unit cost. That is an outstanding combination that most people don't take advantage of. I don't want another coffee mug with some sort of logo on it or a pen, but give me a book that I think really ties into the information I'm seeking. I'm excited about that. And a lot of companies are coming to realize that this has great potential. Look what eBooks has done. If you do a bulk ebook sale to a company now, they don't even have to ship the book. They don't have to inventory the book. There's all kinds of things that can happen. But I swear we're the only people pursuing bulk ebook sales. The vast majority of the industry participants aren't even looking into the opportunities in that space for some reason.
And ebooks is the way so many people will consume. They don't want the physical book. I personally do like the physical book.
Me too.
I like to feel it and touch it and, mark it if I find the things that are interesting, because it is something I will go back to. But you can do that even with an ebook. If you have your reader there, you can even mark the key areas, highlight them and different things like that. So it's pretty interesting that even the ebooks, I never even gave that a moment's thought, was how to do bulk sales with ebooks.
Oh, it's crazy. We had a lady just watch our sample videos when the book course first came out. She was from the eastern states, and she had a book on music, the music industry. She was trying to tap into some corporate sales. She watched the video. She sent out the kits, and she calls us back. I'm not exaggerating. It might have been 2 weeks at the most later. And she goes, I just got a deal for 70,000 copies. I said, 70,000 copies? I mean, that's a big deal by any standard. That's a big deal. But here's the funny thing about that story that I mentioned to you off air. She sent Scott and me a copy of the book. It truly wasn't very good. It really wasn't. And I don't say that very often, because normally to get a corporate sale, you have to have a very professional looking book. It has to look like an outstanding book, excellent cover, subtitle. But this book did not have that look. 70,000 copies. But we've had several people apply these techniques and sell 5,000, 8,000, 12,000, 20,000. et cetera, because a lot of companies think, yeah, this is a relatively inexpensive way to get out a message that matches our objectives, that fosters goodwill, that deepens relationships. Plus, the book has the logo on the front cover. It might have a message inside from the CEO. So again, we're fostering brand awareness and everything else. It makes sense from every perspective, but I pull my hair out because most authors and most publishers aren't even trying it.
Well, most of us haven't even known that this method was available or that hadn't thought about it. And what I'm grateful for is when my author said, "Oh, you've got to check out Dave Chilton's course." I'm like, "Well, I haven't even heard of you."
Well, yeah, most of the Americans haven't heard of the Wealthy Barber as much as they have in Canada. But here's one of my all-time favorite stories. And so just bear with me for a second. The Wealthy Barber Returns, and these are books on personal finance, came out in Canada. So both books had come out, The Wealthy Barber and The Wealthy Barber US, years ago. But the follow-up came out X number of years ago. And my son said to me, "Hey, I'm going to approach a financial institution in Canada that's an online bank. So they're dealing with their clients over the internet. They're not dealing with them face-to-face. I'm going to offer them the ebook version of your book, but I want to do it in a different way. I'm going to say to them, you pay me a flat fee and you can have unlimited downloads for your clients of the book, like the Netflix model. You pay a flat fee, unlimited downloads." And I said, "I don't know, unlimited, that's a lot. And what if they download millions and millions and millions of copies and they saturate the market in Canada and take away my other sales?" And he said, "Okay, I'll put a limit on of the number of clients they have. So if they have 1.5 million clients, for example, they can't go bigger than that." And I said, "I'm still a little skeptical, but you can at least look into it." He comes back to me a week later and he says, "I got the deal in place. We're going to give them access to the ebook. They're going to make it available to their clients. They're going to pay a one-time fee. They're going to take the downloads." And I said, "I'm still a little worried." He said, "They're willing to pay $400,000. I said, "Where do I sign?" Like, remember, we have no cost of goods sold. We have no inventory. We have no shipping. We have no printing. We basically just gave them the files and they paid us $400,000. Like, it was unbelievable. And a great deal for them too, because you think about it, if they send out 1 million books, they're paying 40 cents a unit with no shipping costs, no inventory costs. And they're getting a book out there with a well-known brand in Canada that resonates with people, that deepens the relationship. And on the ebook version, again, they can put their logo on the cover. Everybody wins. But of course, I'm not going to turn down a deal for $400,000. That's crazy. But again, I tell people this story. Major publishing houses, I've told this, a Random House, Penguin, all the big publishing companies, Simon & Schuster, and they go, "Wow, we've never tried anything like that." And we've now pulled that type of deal multiple times. And again, people aren't trying this. There's a lot of possibilities out there in this space. Wiley did a wonderful job, fantastic job with all the dummies books by selling physical excerpts. So instead of the corporation buying the entire book, they would buy a 16 or 32 page signature, sometimes 64, and they'd pay a lot less for it. And Wiley might sell a pharmaceutical company 600,000 copies of dummies for diabetes, something like that. I'm making this up. And they would sell them the excerpt and they would sell it to them at $1.20 and they would print it for 60 cents. Well, guess what? If you're making 60 cents profit on a 600,000 unit sale, that's $360,000 in profit. And again, you talk to most people about this, they go, "I didn't even know there was such a thing as physical excerpts. I'd never thought of that kind of thing." So I think the course is really opening up people's minds and opening up their eyes to all the possibilities out there. A bookstore is one place to sell a book, whether it's online through Amazon or whether it's offline through Borders. But at the end of the day, frankly, there are better ways to sell books. Selling books in bulk, more lucrative ways, less time-consuming ways, better return on time invested ways, and most people don't know about them.
That is incredible. And it's brilliant that you came up with it, because that you took the time to create a course like this, because it actually shows your generosity and your the vision that you have. Because David said, "I listened to I've just started through the course myself," but he said, "I listened to every single one of those videos," and he said, "Look what it's doing for me."
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I mean, there is a lot. I must admit, as I said earlier, I went a little bit crazy, and there's 17 hours worth, and the detailed stuff. Like, I tell you what color of kit to use, what time of day to call. Like, I think I got a little obsessive compulsive, but those little things matter when you're trying to get radio interviews. And by the way, radio interviews are still very beneficial. Don't listen to anybody who tells you that radio is not a good way to sell books anymore. It still is. The radio listener is the book buyer. And there's a lot of radio shows that still have huge audiences, and you can do a longer interview. You can often go back many times, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. You add all those things together, it's still a great medium. In fact, radio listenership, by the way, is up during the virus challenges. And so I think that radio is still very good. Podcasts, an amazing way to sell books. If you can get on the right podcast, you have such an intrigued and loyal audience. They are ready to deepen their knowledge about the subject matter. If you go on a podcast and give a good interview, it may be the single best way to move books. Now, often you'll go on the podcast, do the interview, and literally moments later, your sales will go way up at Amazon. People are going straight from the interview and buying your book. Another great thing, I'm kind of rambling right now, maybe even better than a podcast interview, strangely, is if a podcast host who has an excellent audience, so it's a he or a she, and they have an audience that's loyal and it's in the millions, and they come out and say, you must read this book. That casual but aggressive mention does more for your book sales than a major book review in many instances, because the podcast host has an established relationship, they have rapport, they have built up trust with their listening audience, and that often translates to a high impact quotient. So these things are all the new things you have to learn, but I would argue none of them are too deep. I just tried to put them all in one place and provide all the surrounding detail. Because you mentioned in the intro, I think one of the things the course does very well, and I'm bragging, but I'm very proud of this, is we don't just tell you what to do, we tell you precisely how to do it. There's too many courses out there that say, well, go out and get radio interviews, but that can't do much for people. They have to know, where do I find the right database? What do I put in the kit? Do I follow up with phone or email? What time of day do I call up? Should I contact the producer or the host? These are all the details that people need to know as they make those efforts. And the course tried to really do a good job on that front.
Well, you did do, and what is interesting to me with the way you put the course together, it's not a lot, there isn't any written material, it's all video. And you're step by step, they're short videos so that people can take it in, kind of take their notes, go back and listen to them again, and really get it. And I think for most of us, that's the type of information we need to consume, because it's short to the point, and we know how to do that step, go into the next one.
Yeah, and I try to wrap a lot of humor in there.
You did.
Keep them entertaining and keep it moving. And, we didn't give the written materials because selfishly, we couldn't figure out how to stop people from just taking your written materials and giving them all out, and then they don't have to watch the course. And I wanted them to watch the course. I thought the way I delivered it in terms of wrapping in the details and also using the humor, and they could see the passion, that was going to be more impactful than the printed word in this case. Many times I believe in books. In fact, as you know, I write books. But in this particular course's case, I thought it was better to see me and to hear the energy and to hear the confidence in what we've done and the stories about what we've done that didn't work. Because I talk a lot about different things we tried that didn't work, why they didn't work, why you shouldn't do it, etc. There's a lot in there. I mean, people can go and they can watch the samples, and I think they can get a good feel for the kind of attention to detail that the course has.
Well, you've done a remarkable job, and I've only listened to probably 5 or 6 videos so far, because interestingly, this has been a really busy time for me too. But I love the way in that you present your calmness, the what you exude, and how you take it so deeper with each video. But it's all pretty, well, this is how it's done. Matter of fact, easy to consume, and you're not sitting for an hour listening to you expound on one subject or two to the point, so there's actionable steps. Yeah,
we try to give 5 and 6 minute videos and make it a little punchier. And there's also some videos in there where I'm not critical, but I'm skeptical about some of the things conventionally taught. There's an industry of people out there teaching book marketing, and some of it's generated really around trying to get you up to the top 2 on Amazon for 9 minutes. And I'm more about, how do you sell a lot of books? Like, at the end of the day, you want to make a lot of money, you want to grow your personal brand, and I hate to sound corny, you want to help people. You wouldn't be writing a book if you didn't think the information you had wasn't valuable. You want to get it in people's hands to change their lives. And so that's really what this is about. If you're really serious about this is definitely for the serious book marketer. So this is not for the casual book marketer who wants to spend a couple hours trying to move up the Amazon list. This is for people who want to be impactful and want to do it right and try to sell a lot of books. And I think if you want to put the effort into it, most of these don't take a tremendous amount of time and money. You're sending out some kits and you're making some follow-up phone calls. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things when I first started in the publishing realm, I was taught, I don't know if you've ever met Mike Koenigs.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so Mike, that's where I learned about publishing. That's all his classes. And of course, he has this huge database of people. So in his teaching, you're thinking, wow, I can do that too. But he didn't talk about the database that he had that was picking up his books and reading them.
Yes, it's true. He had the built-in audience.
He did. And the difference is, if you don't have a built-in audience, if you don't have not gone that route, as far as you haven't been out on social media, you're not speaking publicly, you're not doing these big events and everything, then it's a whole different ballgame. And
you said that very well. And I wish that everybody could see that, because you buy some of these books on book marketing and there's an underlying assumption that either you already have that big audience and you can do email blasts and so on and so forth, or you're going to be able to build it quickly. And the latter is definitely not true.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to build a following. In fact, it's actually easier to market a book than it is to build a following to market the book to. You're better to go the old-fashioned ways of trying to get interviews, get reviews, to your point earlier, etc. So he's got some excellent material. And you know, some of the guys from, yeah, he's fantastic. And some of the guys from years gone by, like if you look back at Dan Pointner, who's now deceased, he had great material. And Dan was way ahead of the curve on corporate sales. He had some outstanding things there. John Kremer from 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books, which is kind of the Bible of the book marketing. It still applies. But the funny thing is, a lot of authors don't read that stuff because there's a lot of gems in those books. There really are. Tom and Marilyn Ross, I think they're gone now too. And they wrote The Complete Guide to Self-Publishing. Well, all of those older books in the space, I actually think there's better information in a lot of those than there are in a lot of the new ones. The new ones have spun off into here's all the fancy things you can do using Twitter. The vast majority of them don't even work. And again, they assume you're going to have a big following. So don't be afraid, if you're listening to this, to go back to Amazon and pick up some of the old book marketing classics like 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books. It's still outstanding.
There's so much value to it. And I know I've read so many books myself, and it never is enough that you could just go out and apply it and it's going to work, especially if you don't have this great big database that, like the Mike Koenigs of the world, you know. And Mike does a remarkable job. But when I first started self-publishing for others, the first experience I had was, wow, that was easy to get them to #1 bestseller, but how are they going to keep selling their books? You know, right. And that's where my passion has been shifting, to help them to see, oh my gosh, there's so many ways that you can do this much better. And you want those after the publishing, you want the book sales to make the difference for you. It takes a lot of effort to write a book, a good book.
I completely agree. And you're right, a lot of the new marketing initiatives around, again, as you said earlier, how to get that quick buzz and move up Amazon for a day or two to say you're a bestseller, to say you hit #1 in a very small niche. Whereas I think a better way to invest your time, and maybe you can do them both, but a better way to invest your time is to try to truly grow your book towards selling thousands, having a sustained visit on bestseller lists, constantly being well known in your industry. You can market a good book in the nonfiction space for years. I mean, most of the advice is timeless. You may have to revitalize the book on occasion and revamp it, etc. But for the most part, these books have long runways, but they're only marketed for a very few weeks. People get frustrated. And you mentioned earlier too that you take out some of these books and that teach you how to market, but there's not enough detail. Don't worry about I love dogs. Our dog is here, and I'm worried that at any time he may be doing the same thing, by the way, because he barks at everything. So he's been very well behaved so far.
My grandson is in the backyard. I'm in Arizona.
Oh, I love Arizona.
Yeah, my grandson's running in the backyard, so like, so I think he's right there waving at the window to me. He's at his school. So I'm sorry, I have to. He's like, these days with kids out of school, you never know what's going to happen when you're doing it.
But you know what's kind of great is that I think that we've all lowered our expectations on video professionalism and everything. And I kind of like when I hear the dog bark and your grandson's at the window, et cetera. It humanizes the whole thing. Yeah. And I think, frankly, it sounds, again, a little corny, but it's very consistent with the course. Because in the course, I talk a lot about the importance of connecting on a personal level, on an emotional level with your reader. You have to open up to do that. You have to be vulnerable. You have to talk about your mistakes, all those types of things. And I think us hearing your dog in the background, all those things, those are positives. And again, I think people are growing accustomed to that. And they kind of like it. And there's been some pretty funny ones online, like, a lady doing a Zoom and her husband came in the background naked, et cetera, and then quickly had to run out. I mean, that may be going a little too far, but I think all of this is probably a good thing.
I think so too. And I've loved this interview. I'd like to go on, but I didn't block off extra time on my calendar, so I have another one coming up. And
My pleasure, though. Let's keep in touch. If I can ever do anything, reach out, say hi to David for me, and I hope that the listeners enjoyed. And you're doing a good job. I mean, I think, unlike a lot of publishers, you're emphasizing the marketing. It's not just about producing the books or even producing and distributing them. It's how do we get people to want them, to hear about them, and to want them. That's the art of really successful publishing, and that's where I think the course can help people. So thanks again.
Awesome. You're just wonderful. And I have a couple of other opportunities that I want to engage you in after this in the next couple of months to really get your message out too.
Okay, well, let the grandson in and the dog out, and you're going to be covered.
Yeah, I'll be covered.
All right, thanks again.
All right. Thank you. You're awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.